A 10th police officer charged with the attempted murder of businessman Thabiso Ngcobo is expected to appear in court this morning. He has now handed himself over to the Pinetown Police Station. The story about this case is as follows. Ngcobo was traveling along the M13 near Pinetown in May. This is when his car was forced off the road, he said, and sprayed with bullets. Police at the time claimed it was a case of mistaken identity. The man's 9 co-accused have been granted bail of 5,000 rand each, and they are expected back in court on the 20th of August. Nobuhle Modise is live for us outside court. Nobuhle, good morning to you and welcome to the program. So this is an interesting development because we know that police had stated their intention to arrest these particular officers, and one wonders whether this was a voluntary handing over, or whether he was told, in fact, that he would be facing these charges. Just give us the circumstances around that, and also just remind our viewers of how this story itself has evolved.
Indeed, Iman. So you remember just over 2 weeks ago, 9 members of the provincial task team here in KwaZulu-Natal handed themselves in, and there was a 10th member who hadn't yet handed themselves in as they were on leave. And this is now the 10th member who is now then handing themselves over. This has happened this morning, just earlier at the Pinetown Police Station, and he will now be appearing here at the Pinetown Magistrates Court. And so just for some background on this case, you'd remember that we broke the story with Thabiso Ngcobo when he told us that he was one day driving on the way to work, and he saw that he was being followed and almost being veered off the road. And when he stopped, he realized that there were men with balaclavas and they were armed, telling him to get out the car. Unfortunately, he didn't get out the car, and he said then that's when one member of these officers moved to the back of the vehicle and started shooting at it. Now, it's a miracle that Thabiso is alive because his car was an armored vehicle, and he has been fearing for his life because this is not the first attempt on his life. I actually do have Thabiso Ngcobo here with me. He, I'm assuming, is here for that appearance of that 10th member of the police who has handed himself over and will be appearing. Thabiso, how are you feeling? I mean, you're heavily guarded right now, and the last time I spoke to you, you had said that you fear for your life. Is this still the case?
Indeed, it is still the case because we don't know yet what is happening and what was the cause. But we are clear now, with all the investigation that is going on, that the case of mistaken identity, I'm sure we can put aside. It was definitely not that.
So maybe take us through what happened. Let the viewers hear it from you on the day that you almost lost your life. What happened?
I was driving down the M13 on my way to a meeting when I realized a car coming behind me. Then came to the side of me with 4 guys with balaclavas. They all looked over. I looked over to them, then pulled back behind me. We proceeded down M13. At some point, the car then turned on blue lights. Unmarked car. I then indicated to move. The car moved with me. I then realized that there's 2 other cars behind it, a Golf 8, no number plates, and another car. I then stopped. The guys had rifles out the windows, demanding me to get out the car. The guy in the Golf 8 also came out the car, banged on my window with the back of his firearm, a 9mm pistol, demanding me to open the door. I told them that I'm on the call with the commissioner. They proceeded to try to open the car. The guy then moved back to the Golf, then pulled out a rifle, took a few steps forward, and started shooting. I then drove off at that time. Commissioner then asked me where I told him where I was. I dropped the phone with him, called my father. I told him what was happening. I then called my cousin as well, told him what's happening. Commissioner called me back shortly and asked me, had I passed Westville? I said no. He said, had I passed Pavilion, in fact? I said no. I said, what should I do? He said, pull into Pavilion. I've sent people your direction. That's when I went into Pavilion Shopping Center, and shortly thereafter, the people that the commissioner had said arrived. The guys that were shooting also shortly arrived on scene as well. Didn't say much. 3 of them came down into the security office because by that time I was in the security office. They came down into the security office, looked at me. It was as if there was some sort of stare down that was happening. Still had their balaclavas on. They then looked at my ID because the police had asked me to identify myself, which I did. They looked at my ID, and then as they walked out, and walked back to the top.
Thabiso, another question that everybody has is why would members of the police shoot at you in that manner? Your life is under threat, as you've stated before. The wheels of justice seem to be slowly turning as they've handed themselves over. We now know that there are members of the SAPS, the provincial task team, that is. Your feelings around the fact that these are actual members of the police?
That's the disappointing part in all of this, that it's actually members of the South African police. Because at first one was confused as to what was happening. And I wouldn't know why I would have police shooting at me. And that's the very reason it felt uncomfortable. As much as it was a blue light, and that's why I complied to stop. But the number of police that were there, that was not a traffic stop. So it clearly told me that it doesn't feel right. And so I don't know. I'm also interested to know what was the cause behind all of this.
Do you think that there could be more than 10? Because so far we now have 10 members who have appeared and one that's appearing today. Were there more, or is this?
I believe there were more. I believe there were more because, as I'm saying, as much as I cannot disclose because the case is ongoing. But we've been told that I've identified 3 vehicles, but there were more than 3 vehicles. And there were civilians as well. There were private security companies. It wasn't just the police. So those are all the questions that we still need to get answers to, as to what was this operation, because clearly it was capacitated a lot. There was a lot of resources put to this.
Thank you very much. That is Thabiso Ngcobo, who is the victim in this case. He is the person who was shot at by those members of the provincial task team who have appeared, and that one that will be appearing here this morning. And also, just for the viewers, that Thabiso is a businessman, and he had mentioned as well that he's currently undergoing a court process in the High Court where it involves the construction mafia, so an extortion syndicate, because he is in the construction business as well as the transport space. So we cannot speculate as to why this has happened. He has said the same thing, but those are the facts around his life, and he is now here also to find out, exactly why what has happened to him had happened. Back to you, Iman.
Nobuhle Modise, thank you very much. Again, another story to watch with great interest.